I love this. I was inspired by this quote that I saw on Instagram, and I was like, huh, that kind of aligns with all of these things that have been like rattling through my old noggin here. And what we're doing right now is I am doing like an interpretation of Billie Eilish's look that she's worn in her latest beautiful shots, and also in her interview with British Vogue magazine. I do recommend checking that out if you've got like 20 minutes whilst you're washing up or something. So all of the products are cruelty-free, vegan and not owned by parent companies that test on animals. They're also listed down below, along with any links and resources for what I'm actually sharing in this video, because we are obviously talking about the fact that your free time does not mean that you're available. So this is a bit of a self-care chill moment. I have trapped my sciatic nerve, so I'm in intolerable amounts of pain right now, and I'm just going to stop filming now and get on with it. So let's just get into this relaxing time together. So first off, I just want to say the 40-hour work week is a lie. This is a very first world viewpoint that I'm bringing up, but even though it's a first world problem, doesn't actually make it not a problem. Like, I don't want people to say, oh, it could always be worse, because that's a really, really bad attack on people's mental health and well-being. And if you're going to start making those comments, you can leave. This is a nice safe space that we're having here. The 40-hour work week, I don't really think that that's really been a thing since about the 70s. And I will actually be having another video come out about hustle culture if you want that, because it's something that I'm very keen on making. I've sort of found in my whole working life and working in corporate, people take their work home with them and they work longer hours than what they're actually paid for. So for example, you're meant to be working a 7.5-hour day, right? Like, that is pretty much a standard, literally the Dolly Parton 9 to 5 song. That's what people are meant to be doing. That song is iconic. If you haven't listened to the lyrics of it recently, I highly recommend that you do, by the way. And also watch that movie. The movie is amazing. So collectively, thanks to unions and stuff, we've been able to get like the time kind of down, but the problem is, thanks to technology, whilst it's amazing for some of the things it can actually do for us, it's also caused this thing where you are constantly accessible, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether it's the weekend, whether it's outside of working hours. Every single one of my bosses that I've supported in my life, same as the people that I just work with, it's very typical to take your work home with you. Now, of course, I'm saying this from a corporate experience, but also when I worked in fast fashion, there was this constant need for people to be available. But not only to be available, but also to take on more work. I haven't actually... So I don't know about you or what it's like in the rest of the world, but I know that in Auckland, like, receiving emails at all hours of the night and morning is actually pretty common. And this isn't from different time zones, this is from within New Zealand as well. And like I say, this is how it's actually been through my whole working life in terms of like working in corporate. I personally think that this is very unhealthy, and I know that the higher up you go in a company, the more that is expected of you, and people are like, oh, this is why they earn that much. And I'm like, well, no, I actually think that people should earn that much because they're good at their job and they can do it within the allotted hours, not because they have to sacrifice their entire life in order to do so. But also, the wealth disparity amongst most businesses is really off in my books. That's the topic for another video. One thing that isn't really taken into consideration, the commuting hours. So I've mentioned before, I live in Auckland in New Zealand, and it's very typical to spend 1 to 2 hours a day just in a commute. I don't know how it is around the rest of the world. I know that we are fortunate in comparison to people in LA, but also, and maybe the people that work in London and like major centres like that, but Auckland's only got about 1.5 million people in it, and it shouldn't really take that long. It's just the fact that our infrastructure really sucks here. I don't want people starting to tell me, oh, but I get to listen to a podcast then, I get to like listen to my audiobooks, I get to do all of this stuff. It's like, no, that is not your free time. And if you're catching a train, that is not your free time either. I don't know if you're a female watching this, but if you are, I don't know how unsafe you feel on public transport, but I've always felt somewhat unsafe. If anyone's been stalked in the past, you know what I'm talking about. I cannot do the Billy brow because my eyebrows are not as glorious as hers, so I'm just gonna have to do what I can, okay? This is still time that is spent, that you are on your way to work, you're getting in that mindset, and it's time where you're not actually able to properly relax. So I would definitely argue that this is not free time. This is like, okay, here's another thing. So you know when people go to meetings during the day, their commute time, once they're actually in the office to travel somewhere else, that is considered to be work time. So why is it not considered to be work time to go from where you live to work? I know that I'm a radical leftist or whatever people might want to call me. I'm really not a radical person. I just consider this being a decent human being. Commute time should always be considered to be working time as far as I'm concerned. We do know that the stress of commuting for longer than 20 minutes is like, it takes a toll on people, and it actually also makes people feel like they can't socialize. Like for me to go and do stuff, even on the weekends, it takes about an hour to get there. And it's like, you want to stay home. I know that some people relax by going for driving. It's not exactly good for the environment to promote that either. When you add the whole commute into it, the working day turns from what would probably be more like 10 hours into something that is very much closer to 12 hours. And that's not even including the weekends that it leaches into as well. So I just want to establish what does not count as free time. Cooking, cleaning, parenting. I would actually argue exercise. If you were doing strenuous, challenging exercise where you have to like really focus and like you're grunting and lifting weights. Commuting, shopping, you know, like grocery shopping or whatever when it's like not for pleasure. Running the household, checking your emails. So the real problem with all of these is the fact that they're task-based and none of them are actually relaxing. They're all based on getting a chore done ultimately. So it's like your mind isn't allowed to wander really because you're actually focused on getting stuff done, so to speak. She has a lot of blush, so I'm just going to use a lot of blush too. So ultimately, whilst you can make these tasks a bit more pleasant by like I said, playing music or like whatever to make it a bit more fun, it doesn't actually take it away from the fact that it is a task. It's a chore. You're doing a job. You're not actually having free time. Which leads me on to another thing, because I personally do not count time that you spend on your phone as free time either. So you know how we've got these wonderful apps that show when you're available? I hate that. I hate it so much, and I also hate the fact that they also show when someone has read something. It actually leads the obligation that you have to respond like right then and there, because the other person can see that you read it, and you're being a rude person if you don't respond straight away. You may have accidentally opened something and then it shows that you've seen it, and that happens to me quite a bit. You know how Facebook owns Instagram and Zuckerberg just apparently wants to ruin our lives? So you can't actually turn off like the function that shows that you've read something, because apparently it's really important that someone knows when you've read something. So there's no real way to make a boundary. There is a way to make it so that you do not show active on Facebook, and I'll link that down below. And there is another article where you can do that for other apps as well. So that's a good way to like just be able to like set a bit of a boundary and be like, this is my social time, this is my not social time. I can respond on my time. We've moved on from when someone wasn't home or just didn't pick up the phone. You know, like you had a voicemail, you had like a phone that was attached to a wall, so if you couldn't get there, you couldn't get there. But now it's like there's this constant obligation to be always available to people, to respond to them, to fix their problem, to whatever. There's a couple of solutions I can give to you if you're not in the right headspace, whether you're dealing with anxiety or whatever. Option one is to say, I'll come back to this later, with a smiley face if you're dealing with someone that's quite overbearing. Or if you're dealing with someone that understands like boundaries and safe space, you can say, I'm just not in the right headspace to respond to this now, but I will do later. And normally they'll understand, but if you assume that someone is like that understanding and that level of EQ is actually way lower than what you thought, boom, you're in for a bad time. Also, I've got a giveaway at the moment on my Instagram using this. If you're in New Zealand, hi, follow me on Instagram right here. I figured it will work amazing for the Billie look, because then it starts the messages. What's wrong? What's happened? How can I help? Why are you not responding to me? Do you need to call me? And then someone calls you as well. Or if you still don't respond, they call you on another form of social media, or they reach out to you on another form of social media, and you get these constant notifications. Your phone just keeps going off and off and off and off, and it just keeps getting worse, and your anxiety is just starting to turn into a panic attack. So be careful who you send those messages to, because the impression is that if you're on a social media platform, you're obviously not doing anything right. Like, you're not doing anything that's important. You're actually free for a chat because like you're available, because you're always available, because social media can't possibly be anyone's job. It's not like you could be creating content or actually responding to businesses and also people and doing multiple other things on social media. Maybe you're actually gathering information for something else that you're working on, like a project. Like, that's what I do a lot. I'm sure that you do this as well when you're on social media for a specific purpose and then people are like, oh, well, you're free now, and you're like, oh, actually I'm not. So this is your time that you don't have to give to anyone. Just because you're showing as available because you can't stop, it doesn't mean that you have to be available to literally everyone to solve everyone's problems and carry that burden on your shoulders. Whilst we need social media, I really enjoy social media. Like, a lot of things can suck for our mental health because it's like you never feel like you have a chance to switch off. Social media, at least to me, is a workspace. It's not a social space, if that makes sense. For this I'm going in with rose water because I believe she's got a colour very similar to this all over her lids. So your free time is not your available time to people. It is your time to recharge as a human, and I think that that has been somewhat erased over time. I can see like glimmers of people starting to fight back and try and create those boundaries, create this space that is desperately needed because humans can't be on all the time. Just because you answer that you're doing nothing, rookie mistake by the way, never say that, doesn't mean that you're actually free to sacrifice your time to someone else, or that you're in the right headspace to handle something that someone else is sending to you or trying to get you to solve or discussing with you or whatever. Responding that I'm having some time to myself or I'm just having some me time is absolutely fine. I almost feel like there's an association of guilt with actually taking time for yourself, and it's like, well, no, because whilst humans are social creatures, like the way that we're constantly plugged in and drained now is actually not really what I would deem to be healthy. So I'm a big believer that setting boundaries is important, especially when you're always expected to be available and on call. Whether this is in a work setting or, like I said, social media or whatever, just, yeah, creating that firm boundary is helpful and important. I just want to put this out there to anyone that's currently struggling with this. You do not have to be the person at work that is always happy to take on more tasks. You do not have to be that person who is always happy to pick up another shift. You don't have to be that person that covers for everyone when someone leaves or whatever it may be. This constant need to please people for the fear of not being a good team player or not being a good employee. The fact of the matter most likely is that you've already got enough on your plate and you don't have the space to take on more. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that you're letting anyone down. You're actually not letting anyone down by not missing out on the deadlines that you currently have. I don't want anyone to start feeling like guilty for actually saying no. No is not a word that you should feel bad about using. I just want to say that from a company's perspective, you are a resource, a human resource, but a resource. And if they can get more work out of you, they absolutely will. They will do what they can to get more work out of you. So as we've seen, especially I've seen and noticed since 2008, when someone leaves, they're not necessarily replaced. Companies will try and make sure that their job can be split amongst other people or just passed off to someone else, even though that other person's job may be absolutely full and they can't realistically take on all of these other jobs because something is going to slip. A company is there to make profits, and saving, whether it's like 20, 60, 70 grand a year, whatever it may be, they'll absolutely do that in order to make their finances look better. Like, you're a resource in the same way that animals are resources in animal agriculture. And look what happens to them. Like, I just don't want you to get it twisted that a company doesn't think that you're dispensable. Now, this isn't just in office jobs, this is also in fast fashion. Like I said, you'll get called up to cover more and more and do longer and longer hours with less support around you. It's just the expectation, and you're not a good team player apparently if you're saying, hey, this actually doesn't feel fair. Then that's you being a bad person, a bad employee. Why are you trying to spread toxicity here? So what are the actual effects of like not prioritizing and using your free time properly? Now, I do mean actually properly using your free time. So how about that struggling mental health that we have going though? So fatigue occurs, stress obviously goes up. Stress is a killer as well, baby. As well as higher likelihood to get ill, to get sick. You can have poor sleep and interrupted sleep, which also leads to like being unwell as well. So basically, the thing is, if you're constantly working and constantly having to be there for other people, then you're actually going to be the one that suffers. The thing is, if you're not able to take care of yourself, you definitely cannot take care of anybody else. And you'll be the one that suffers for it, and it's like, who's going to take care of you when everyone is made to be so busy, you know? I just don't really think it should be praised how it is now in terms of like burnout culture and the strive to want to be like constantly exhausted and unavailable and too busy and all of that. It's not healthy. Oh, wise one, how much time should you have for free time then? Ultimately, this depends on your level of privilege, really, because if you are working in the gig economy and you've got 2+ jobs, finding free time that you can actually not worry about the time is gonna be few and far between. And the thing is, that whole system needs to change. You can try and carve out like some 15-minute blocks here and there, but the whole system is screwed, basically. Oh my god, I just got mascara on my eyelid. So if you are able to, I do really recommend scheduling your time. Now, I know that people are used to only having to do that for like their job, but actually if you schedule like more of your time, as in like all of your time, and even if it's just like flexible time frames or whatever, that can really help you. Now, I know that this doesn't work for everyone, but if you have anxiety or if you've been through trauma in your life, then you will absolutely benefit from having, well, I won't say you absolutely will. I know that it's very beneficial to people that have actually been through this stuff to schedule things and to make sure that things are actually set. Especially if you're someone that's like me and you can't actually relax until your tasks are done. By effectively managing your time and making sure that you've got things blocked out, then you can know when you do actually have free time to do the things that you want to do and to actually have that proper free time. When it comes to parents, I actually worry about this. Getting time to yourself like can only really be once the kids are to bed, if they actually even stay in bed. And then you also have like their school lunches to prep for, you have their washing to do, you've got to pack their bags, you have to do so many stupid, ridiculous things, and then you're like, oh, I just actually need to check my work emails because I had to leave earlier in order to be able to pick up my kids, and so I didn't do the 10-hour day or 12-hour day that all of my other peers are doing. My best advice would be to have your do not disturb put on your phone and have your out of office set to be hours that suit you. If you particularly find that you've got a workplace where you're expected to work all hours, if you have that conversation with your manager, this is my parenting time, these are the hours of my work, like I just want to make sure that like we're clear on that. If a workplace is making you feel bad for the fact that you have a family to look after, workplace isn't a good place. Effectively using your time is helpful. So for example, if you set yourself a timer, like this is what I do and have done for many years because I've kind of always needed to for my anxiety, for how long you're actually allowed to spend on a task, and then you have a proper break afterwards, whether it's a 20-minute break, whatever, like an actual break, not just scrolling through social media, which doesn't actually relax you, and in fact it's more akin to doom scrolling and the bad stuff that can come from that. Then I would say like scheduling that time, making sure that you've got a balance of getting your work done, and you know this is a time where you're focused, that you're effectively using your time, and you're like, there's no other distractions during this time, this is what I am doing right now. And then you know that you've got that little reward afterwards. Just gonna reduce, I'm gonna blot right now, then I'll be back. So then, what is my solution for what you should be doing in your free time? Basically, the rule is that you want to be doing a hobby that isn't actually strenuous, that isn't like, well, I'm not about doing things like video editing, content creation, doing hard exercise, like I'm not on about doing those sorts of things or reading a heavy book, because sweetheart, that is education. That is not a relaxing time when you're reading about other people's trauma. So it's like doing things that relax you and demand you to actually be present in the moment in whatever way that works best for you. It could be a walk, it could be having a bath, it could be watching a movie, like a nice light-hearted movie that you enjoy. It could be reading a light book. It could be watching a show that makes you happy. It could be doing some yoga or Pilates or meditation. Like maybe it's going for a bike ride in nature. I probably wouldn't be saying about the roads thing, but if you're actually in nature, that's probably a bit more relaxing. Now I know that for some people as well, like planning a trip or thinking of a trip that you want to be on and like getting the fun information for that can be really fun as well. Or even if it's like enjoyable shopping, but I'm not trying to recommend that people do that because obviously like capitalism's kind of killing us. But yeah, so it's kind of like doing those things that get you in the flow. I know that a lot of people have taken up roller skating and rollerblading recently, whether it's painting something. Like it really does just depend on what works best for you. The main objective is the fact that you don't have an objective that you have to reach at the end of it. Not only can these things actually help you be more creative and also get towards like solving your own problems that you've had in your head. Like how many times do people say, I thought of this in the shower? I mean, like Some people can have long showers. Here in Auckland we definitely can't because we're still suffering from a water shortage. I think it's been about 7 months now we've been going through this. So yes, ultimately that's probably my best recommendation, and I know that I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I have this constant anxiety that I need to be doing something productive because I always feel like I'm running out of time, like my life will not be a long one. So those are my own things, but I've been conscious about trying to make sure that I personally have time to do this. And the thing is, I know that everyone are very, very hard workers, so I just want to put this out there. And if this is helpful to you in any way, I really, really hope it did help. Please give it a like. I'll be back on Tuesday with another video. I do want to cover, like, there's a lot of deeper topics I want to cover which are more like philosophical, movie related as well. But yeah, do subscribe. I'm here every single Tuesday, and I'll have some more review videos coming out on Sunday as well. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed, and I'll see you lovers again very soon. I am going to go rest my back now and probably cry in a corner. Back pain ain't no joke, kids. I'm just... oh, God. This was the closest colour top I had to what she wore. I couldn't get my hair exactly right because I don't have like the vintage stuff, but whatever, I tried. We've gone for the vibe, okay? It's more about the makeup. And I don't have flawless 19-year-old skin. I'm 31. Oh, twitch my back.